Hi everyone! Welcome to episode 5 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind Mishi Fraz Knits. I just want to say welcome if you're new and welcome back if you're returning. Again, I want to say a huge thank you to the community, all the viewers. I've received so many lovely comments. I've got some new subscribers and it's just really exciting. It's really great getting to talk to you all and just chat about something I love, and clearly you guys all love it too. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Before I get started on today's podcast, I've had a few people who've actually reached out about my cats and wanting to know more about them. It's playtime right now, so they are sort of running around, but none of them are here in the general area. But I wanted to take a couple of minutes to just introduce them, I guess, and I'll pop up photos. And if you're not interested in this, totally understandable. I section out my videos into chapters, so just skip the intro portion, move on to the next portion, and you won't have to watch any of this. But if you do want to learn a little bit about my cats, I'll give you a quick introduction on each of them. Our oldest cat is Boink. We actually mostly call her Monkey because she used to hop on our shoulders a lot when she was a kitten. But she is 14 years old. We, actually a coworker of mine way back, her family lived on a farm and they found Boink and her sibling just as babies and rescued them on the farm before anything, dangerous happened to them. And they actually brought them in to the office where I was working at the time. They found somebody to adopt the sibling, but they hadn't adopted out Boink yet. And they had actually brought her in with the intention of taking her to the SPCA after work. And my coworker asked me if I could watch her while she went on her lunch break, and the rest is history. She was just this tiny little flea-ridden thing, and she promptly fell asleep in my arms at my computer desk. And from that moment on, I knew she was mine. Like we bonded instantly. And so I called Thomas, who, my husband, we were just dating at the time, but we were living together. And I called him and I told him that we were going to be watching a cat for a couple of weeks, fully intending that we were going to adopt her. But I knew that I had to ease him into the whole thing. So I was like, we're just gonna watch her for a few days. I knew as soon as he met her, he was gonna fall in love. And obviously he saw through it. At the time, we actually did have 2 cats. One was much older and the other one was about 2 at the time. So he was just like, we already have 2. I don't know how this is gonna work. We need to make sure it's safe for all of them. And anyway, he came by to meet Boink before we brought her home, and immediately, you could just see in his eyes, it was just like little heart eyes just happened. And he actually asked if he could drive her home, because we had to drive home separately. So obviously the rest was history. Boink became a part of our family. And then for a long period of time, our oldest cat passed away not long after that, it was old age, so it was okay. But it was her and our other cat, Booger. A long period of time, it was just the 2 of them, just a couple of years apart. They were decently bonded. They were never best friends, but they got along pretty well. And, they were each other's comfort and safe space. And back in, I believe it was January of 2021, Booger unexpectedly passed away, and it was a pretty traumatic experience for all of us. It was very unexpected, and it was tough because she was bonded really closely with Thomas, and that was really hard on him. And it took us a while to really kind of move past that. But what we noticed in the time, a couple of months after all of that happened, we just noticed where Boink used to be very independent and would kind of just hang out on her own, do her own thing. We would notice that if we left the house even for 20, 30 minutes, when we'd come back, she'd be at the door just waiting, and it just felt like, okay, we need to get her a companion, because it was just kind of sad, and it broke my heart every time because I just felt like she was just really lonely. And so, at that point, we hadn't adopted a cat in 12 years. So at this time, Boink is 12. And so there were already some concerns about, Boink is 12. Like, we need to make sure, you know, it's a cat who is going to get along with her, but is also going to kind of let her get her way. Like, she's the queen here. This is her house. And we can't have a cat coming in and trying to dominate. So we're like, okay, it should probably be a boy cat. And maybe if we get a young-ish boy cat, he'll be malleable enough to where she can kind of teach him, show him the ropes, I guess. So we waited and we did research. We like to adopt our cats from the local shelter just to support that whole program. I mean, it's a great program. We adopt through Paws, and so what I would do is I would go online every morning and just check out the profiles of the cats that they had, and you know, just wait to see if there was one where the personality or age or gender, obviously the combination of all three, sounded like a good fit. And one morning I was up there before work just scrolling and I saw a photo of Bagel, which he was named Melbourne at the time, and obviously, you know, I think Bagel is the right choice. But anyway, so we saw this photo of him and he looked so little and crazy, but it was so like adorably crazy. And I immediately messaged Thomas, my husband, and sent him the photo, and his response was, when are we gonna go see him? So I called up the shelter and made sure he was still there and set up an appointment, and we ended up going that afternoon to meet with him. And it's really great because they let you have a private room where you can kind of get to know them and see their temperament and personality. When we adopted him, I want to say he was 4 to 6 months old. He was just a baby. He was very little. At the time when we met him, he seemed very shy, but you know, we were playing with him and he was just so sweet. And then the woman told us that he actually had a heart condition, and it was a little bit scary just because, you know, we were only a couple months off from grieving our cat that we'd had, you know, for 14 years. And it was scary, the idea of having to, like, you know, does this mean we're gonna have to go back to the emergency vet a whole bunch of times? Is this going to be something where, you know, maybe he won't make it after a year and we're gonna have to go through this again? Can we emotionally handle this right now? Ultimately, we decided we couldn't leave him behind because we knew that he would get the best care with us. We don't have kids, and we love cats, so we figured let's bring him home and we will give him all the care and love he needs. Any procedure, any medicine, we'll get it taken care of. So yeah, we took him home that day, and immediately, I would say within, you know, a couple of days after letting him have his own space, make sure he was up on his shots and everything, when we could introduce him into the whole house and meet Boink, we realized quickly that he was quite the personality, and he's quite mischievous, and he's a funny guy. So we ended up getting an echocardiogram done for him as soon as possible, and it did confirm that he had heart disease. I can't think of the name of it right now, I will write it down, but basically he had it's like a thickening of I think the left ventricle wall. So he had a heart condition, and it was something that they told us, like, for right now, it's fine. He's also very young. He could grow out of it. We're just not sure. And so we just had to kind of check back in a year. The following year, we got an echocardiogram, and it was a little bit better, but it was still about the same. So not a significant improvement, but also not worse, which is good. They basically said it's like a baseline, and, you know, this is good news. He doesn't need medication yet. You know, everything's okay for now. I was really hoping at the time that he was going to grow out of it, because they kept saying, like, he's just a kitten, and, you know, it might just be something that a lot of kittens grow out of it, and then it's not actually a heart condition. And at that time, he was a little over a year old, so I was like, well, if he still has it now, it sounds like this is going to be something he's dealing with for life. But a couple of months ago, he went in for his 3rd echo, and they found no signs of heart disease at all. They said everything looked healthy and normal, and When I tell you I cried, I cried so much. I was shocked. I was so happy, and it's just great news. It's just really, really great news. So as of now, assuming everything stays okay, he's good and we don't need to keep checking on that. Obviously, he's a little guy. If you've seen him in the videos, he's a small guy, but he is very healthy, the most energetic cat I've ever met, and just literally the happiest cat I've ever met. He's very sweet and cuddly, and he's just a sweet boy. So back in January, so about 5 months ago, we decided that Bagel needed a friend, because while he and Boink get along decently well, he is just full of energy. And while I would say Boink is like a people cat, like she loves to cuddle in our laps, she loves to sleep with us at night, she kind of loves people more than she's interested in cats. She'll go to cats when she needs comfort, but she'll go to us first. And Bagel is very much a cat. Like every time she comes in the room, he does this like little purgle meow. It's just, he gets so excited, like his entire face lights up and he runs to her, and a lot of times she's just like, leave me alone. So Bagel isn't the most vocal cat except when he's frustrated. And when he tries to play with Boink and she's not having it, he will actually just start like aggressively gurgle meowing while running down the hallway. And you can tell he's frustrated because he's just like, the noises he makes, I mean, it's kind of hilarious, but we were just like, okay, he needs a friend. He's 2 years old. Yes, he's getting socialized because he has Boink, but maybe not in the way that he really deserves. Like he needs more than that. Like he needs a buddy. So then we had that conversation again of like, oh my God, are we really gonna have 3 cats? Like, do we really wanna change the balance to where there are more cats here than people? But we also looked at it as a way to like maybe give Boink the space she wants, because he was often coming over to her to try to wrestle and then she'd get really annoyed. And so the goal again was to find a good balance. We're like, okay, let's do another boy cat again, so there's no territorial issues. They'll be a little bit, you know, more fun, but not a baby, not like a kitten. Maybe preferably a cat around Bagel's age. So like 2 to 4 years old is what we're looking for. So they've calmed down a little bit, but also old enough to have a little bit of maturity, not mess with Boink, but still want to play with Bagel, because Bagel needs somebody who can just literally run up and down the halls all day long. And so searching paws again every day, took a couple of weeks to find Tuna, but then we found him. He was actually named Heart at the time, which I get because he's got a heart on his belly. But and I know Tuna's kind of a funny name. The reason we actually named him Tuna is because he is big. So like where Bagel is a tiny boy, Tuna is a big cat. He's the biggest cat we've ever had. And if you guys are fans of The Office, the sitcom The Office, you'll know the reference Big Tuna. For a while we were trying to figure out a name for him, we just kept calling him Big Tuna. And eventually we just kept calling him Tuna. And that's, you know, that's where it ended up. So now he's Tuna. He was listed as calm but confident, and playful but not hyper, and affectionate with both pets and people, which we found to be very true. He loves everybody. He's very vocal, he's very playful, but he's also not aggressive. And he ended up being the perfect fit for Bagel and for our family. So Bagel and Tuna are besties now. They run around together, they clean each other, they wrestle every day, multiple times a day. There's actually been several times where I've tried to start shooting a video and then they're like wrestling right here, so I've had to stop because you just hear these like little whines and like you see little cat feet. But I will pop up photos for you to see them and all of that. And that was a long-winded, rambling introduction on my cats, but hopefully that helps you to kind of know what our situation is here, and when you see them walking through, that'll help maybe to have a face to the name. So those are our cats, and now why don't we get on to some knitting? Okay, hello and welcome back. It might look a little bit different. I don't know if the setting or the lighting has changed a little bit, but I am reshooting this portion. I shot this video yesterday and I was playing it back today, and it seemed like the knitting portion I really rushed through. I think because I spent so long introducing the cats, I was trying to hurry up for the second part, and I tried to edit it and it felt really choppy, so I was like, let me just reshoot it. It's fine. I would rather just reshoot the video and it actually be coherent. So here we are. So we are in the knitting portion of my knitting podcast, which, hooray, we finally made it. And what I will start talking about briefly is what I'm wearing. If you watched my second episode, I believe, where I talk about my most and least worn summer knits, you will recognize this. This is the Magnolia Summer, and there is Bagel making his appearance known for the day. But this is the Magnolia Summer by Camilla Vad. I'm gonna stand up so you can see the main event of the Magnolia, which is this beautiful lace panel. Truly gorgeous, and honestly, why everybody knits the Magnolia series. Her lace motifs are just gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful knit. I'm looking down at my notes. It is $9.15 on Ravelry, and I knit the size 3 and I believe I used her recommended needle size, which is a US 4 or 3.5 millimeters and a US 6 or 4 millimeters. I knit this with Rowan Tweed, Rowan felted tweed in the color bottle green, and that is a sport weight yarn. And I used 4.1 skeins or 785 yards. Again, as you may have seen if you watched my previous episodes, I love this knit. I love the way it fits me. I love the color. Really, really adore this. The pattern was great. My yarn choice was maybe not superb. It's fine for the transitional months, but it's a little bit warm for actual summer because this Rowan felted tweed, it's quite steamy and it gets a little prickly when I'm warm. But that hasn't stopped me from wearing it. I just normally wear it more in like fall and spring. Now, I mentioned previously that I live in Western Washington. It's early June, which means that we have a lot of cool weather, a lot of cloudy, cool days, some rainy days. And so today was actually a perfect day for me to wear this. It's been kind of a chilly morning, but I think this might be the last day that I can wear it. I think after this, I'm probably going to wash and block it and put it away for the season. So I'm really glad I could wear it one last time in this video. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing. Why don't we move on to FOs and WIPs? So finished objects and work in progress. I'm putting those together for this one because my next one, I have 2 in the same category, but I think that's okay. So my FO for this episode is my first finished pair of Siroc socks, which, let's see, yeah, those look good. This is the pair that I knit for my husband. I knit these in the size 3, and these are done in polka dot sheep Tenderfoot in the colorway Slate. So if you're familiar with this podcast, with what I've been sharing, you'll know that I did 3 versions of this sock. I started with a striped sock, and then I did this one, and then I did a speckled one because I really wanted to see how this cabled motif would appear with all of the different colors of yarn. And I'm really glad I did that because it actually looks very different depending on the yarn you choose. So I wanted to get these done first because my husband was really excited about these. If you've watched previously, I chatted about the fact that the striped version, which I have here, these were initially supposed to be for him, and this was the first pair I knit, and they ended up fitting me, so had to rework the pattern and do all of that, and these kind of went on hold. And when I redid his size, it worked out beautifully. These fit him great. And so yeah, I really wanted to get these done so he could start wearing them. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that there was a bit of a saga for me to actually finish these. This pattern was designed with stash busting in mind. So I knit the striped pair as a way for me to use up the rest of my Advent self-striping sock yarn. And then I wanted to do other versions, but all with yarn that I had in stash. That was kind of the whole joy behind it, was a great way to stash bust your yarn. So I finished the first sock, and then I did the second sock, and I got to about halfway through the toe, and that's when I ran out of yarn. And I hadn't even gotten to the heel yet, so the heel wasn't done. This is an afterthought heel. And I was halfway through the toe, and I was out of yarn. So I had this moment where I was like, okay, am I gonna go buy a whole new skein of yarn to do half a toe and heel? Or do I look back at my projects and see if there's anywhere I can grab from? Luckily, I did actually have a project that I used this yarn for, which is why this was already in my stash and why I didn't have enough for these socks, because ordinarily I would have with one skein, no problem. And what I had was, it's kind of in pieces now a little bit, but is this the right side? Yeah. What I had was this shawl. So this is, I'll briefly give an introduction to what this pattern is. This is the Coralie Springs shawl, and that is by Amanda Rios. And it is, I believe it's $6 on Ravelry. I'll put up all the info if it's different. I knit this using the Palmer Yarn Co. soft sock base in most of these colors, in these beautiful kind of gray toned blues and greens. And with this one, I ran out of yarn, and I went ahead and ordered some other yarn, which was the Polka Dot Sheep Tenderfoot, and I ordered 2 colors to try and finish it off. And you'll see here, what I thought it was gonna be was not what it ended up. It ended up being much more of an icy blue versus this really nice light gray blue, and I will try to, hopefully that shows up okay. You can see, while they are similar, they're just different enough to where it kind of evokes a different mood, and it really wasn't the look I was going for. And this was actually the, let's see if I can show that. This was the border that went with it, and this bottom border uses the slate, which is the color I needed. There was a little section in the middle here, so what I did is I just ripped back. Bagel is pulling at it right now. Sorry about that. So I pulled a middle portion of it so that yarn wasn't, the edges were a little bit, I mean, I did a picot edge, so trying to rip that out I feel like would have been a nightmare. So I pulled back from where it connected, where it joined to this yarn, and I had plenty. Once I ripped that back, I had plenty to finish up my socks with, which was a relief. It was a huge relief, actually. So these are still Stash Buster socks. I didn't have to buy more yarn, which is fabulous. And I actually still have a tiny little bit left that I can use if I don't know, if I need to do any repairs or anything. I probably won't really end up using it, but I could probably use it for heels in another pair of socks as like an accent color. So that is my first pair of Siroc socks done. Really quickly about this pattern, if you are new here, my Siroc socks are currently in testing, which I'm super excited about. I actually have 2 patterns in testing right now. My Secret Flock Socks, which is the collaboration with Hazel Knits, which we will be debuting right before Flock. That test is well underway. I think we've been in testing for about a week and a half, and people are starting to make really good progress. It's looking really good, so that's really exciting. Cats running everywhere. And then this pattern, which actually the test, I put the test call out last week when my last video went out. And my goal was to have testing begin when this video drops, which will be Friday. But fortunately, my tech editor and I were able to finish the pattern a little bit quicker than I thought. Like I said, there was some math involved in getting these sizes to work right with the way the pattern shrinks. And I ended up at the last minute deciding to add one more size because I essentially went down a size. So I always offer 4 sizes in my socks, and that's normally a good range. But with this set of socks, even with the adjustments, there was still a little bit more negative ease than usual. And it just wasn't sitting right with me that, like, there might be some people who still want a larger fitting sock, and I didn't want to not have a size for them. So I added one more size, sent it back to the tech editor, everything is good. And long story short, we were able to get it into testing 2 days ago. So they have started, they've already made great progress. I already have some people who are like past the heel and onto the foot. There's all different types of yarns being used, different like speckled yarns, tonal yarns. I don't know if anybody's done a striped version yet. I'm not sure about that one, but I'm feeling really good about it. And I did want to thank everybody that applied to test. It was really fantastic, the amount of people who applied. I was kind of blown away by it. I normally get a decent amount of people to apply, but I think thanks to, you know, me having a podcast now, I'm able to reach even more people, and the response was really wonderful, and I just want to say thank you. And you know, the beautiful and terrible thing about getting a lot of people to apply to a test is that I can't let everybody in. But yeah, the response was really great, and I'm excited about this group of testers. It's a really good group. So stay tuned on that. I think they're kind of starting to share their photos now, so you'll probably see it pop up here and there on Instagram. I'll be sharing them as I see them, and it's really exciting. So yes, first pair finished, complete. Pop those off to the side. And then transitioning to my works in progress, but still within the Siroc Socks category, you will recognize my speckled version. And I'm going to grab my little sock bag, which funnily enough has sweaters on it, but it's a perfect sock bag size. And I will pull out my work in progress, which, if I can show it, there we go. That is the work in progress of my speckled version of the Siroc sock. This is the size 2. This will be for me. I actually knit the striped pair first, and the striped pair was the pair I was really excited about, and am still very excited about. But then when I knit the speckled version, I think it's a combination of just the really fun colors and the fact that this yarn legitimately might be some of the softest yarn for socks that I've ever used. Like, I cannot believe how soft and squishy this sock is. So why don't I actually tell you what the yarn is? This beauty right here is Salty Blonde Fibers, 2-ply sock, and this is in the color Burn Book. And then the hot pink, which, do I have it? Yes, I do. It's in this bag, which, hello, I'm just going to take a minute to brag about this bag. This is it's Oh Wow Amsterdam. I bought this at Flock last year, and it's amazing. Anytime I'm doing like a bright pair of socks, or am knitting anything that's kind of bright or neon pink, it goes in this because it's just fabulous. This is such a good bag. I love it. Anyway, okay, so the contrast color is this beauty, which is Silly Goose Yarns, Plump Fingering, in the colorway Bubblegum. So these are the 2 yarns, and they are fabulous. And I started this yesterday. So this is, what am I think I am 7 repeats in, and I'm only doing 8 before I get to the heel. And it's got a shadow wrap heel, which means that once I get through the 8th repeat, I will immediately work the heel and then go right to the foot. So I am just about at the heel. And like I said, I knit this in a day. It goes super fast. What I love about this cable motif is that it's just really, it's kind of addicting. It's hard to put down because you'll do one repeat and then you're like, okay, I'll do one more. Okay, I'll do one more. Each repeat is 6 rows and it's mostly just slipping stitches and knitting stitches. And then you do one row where you're doing a very simple 2-stitch cable. So it moves very quickly and it's quite satisfying. But this yarn is quickly becoming some of my favorite sock yarn. I don't know if I could say I have one favorite sock yarn because there's a lot that I've used that I love, but this Salty Blonde Fibers, it's up there. It's very high, and I'm really excited to have this pair done so I can wear these socks. So that is my first work in progress. We'll see how quickly I get this done. All right, we have one more work in progress, and that is in this bag, which I can't remember the brand right now. If I can remember it, I'll put it down here. This is kind of my all-around utility bag for knitting. This is the bag I take with me to knit night or anytime I'm meeting up with somebody to do some knitting. It's got a bunch of pockets inside and out. It's huge, and I can throw some of my biggest projects in here. Oh, it's twig and horn. There we go. So that is the bag. It's a wax canvas, if I didn't already say. And this is holding my Field Day cardigan, which is a little bit tangled. There we go. It's holding my Field Day cardigan. And before I go into trying to show this to you, because right now it's kind of hard to show, I'll go over the pattern. This pattern is Field Day Cardigan by Ozetta. It is $6.50 on Ravelry. It's a top-down cardigan that is a drop shoulder construction, and it's got front closure with 4 buttons down the side and a button band that you knit simultaneously with the rest of it, so you aren't attaching the button band after the fact. So this has a relaxed fit. It's meant to fit with about 8 inches of positive ease, which is 20 centimeters. And I am knitting the size 2. I'm a 34-inch bust, and that should give me about 8 inches or 20 centimeters of positive ease. It calls for a DK weight yarn on US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles. I had to drop down to a US 6 or 4 millimeter needles to get gauge though. So the yarn I'm using is this beautiful, beautiful yarn. This is Hazel Knits Lively DK in the colorway Shannypants. And is it just me, or does that glow? It definitely glows. This is such a gorgeous green. I think it might be my favorite green. As I'm knitting this up, I'm thrilled with how it's looking. So we're gonna try and show this. I don't know if it's better to just show it like this. Maybe it is best to show it this way. So like I mentioned, you actually start here. You start with this back panel. You cast on a whole bunch of stitches, and then you separate out each side, and then you build it up with German short rows to get the width that you want. And then you pick up the stitches for the right side, and then you build out the front panel for a little bit while also building out the button band, and then you do the same thing on the left. I don't want to give away too much of the pattern, but that's kind of the gist of it. If you have knit the Moonset tee, then it is basically the same exact construction up for the first part. Like, I haven't completed the left front half yet, but so far it is exactly like the Moonset tee in construction, which I found really interesting. It's an unusual way, in my opinion, to start a cardigan with the button band. I'm used to doing it where you actually start the button band first, and then you pick up those stitches and build off of that. That's actually how I knit this, which is, I believe this is called the debonair sweater. That's how that was done, where you started with the button band and then you picked up stitches and built the back. So slightly different construction, but it achieves the same effect. The one thing I don't love is that, you know, you start with the back and then you eventually start half of the button band and go across, and then you do the other part of the button band, and you save seaming this portion for the end. I mean, it's fine. It achieves the same effect, but I kind of prefer it when you start with the button band and immediately seam, so you don't have that hole in the back. I double checked my numbers and my stitches and all of that, and everything works out, but I'm always just a little bit nervous that when I go to seam this, you know, I don't want there to be any puckering or unevenness, which I didn't have any issue with in the Moonset tee. So again, I think it'll be okay. Again, like the Moonset tee, a lot of ends that you have to break. So you start the back, like I said, and then you build out a portion of it, and then you put the rest on waste yarn, or like I have here, a barber cord, and then you break the yarn, and then you pick up the stitches and you build out this side, and then you break the yarn, and then you pick up these stitches, build out this side, and maybe at that point I don't break the yarn. I don't know, I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's a lot of breaking yarn, which means a lot of weaving in ends, but it's not that big of a deal. It's fine, I don't mind that. I'll weave in ends and I'll put something on Netflix or YouTube and call it a day, so it's not really a problem. I'm going to attempt to put this on so you can see what it might look like. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's see. Does this work at all? I guess. I don't know how helpful this is. I'm hoping it's a little bit helpful, but this is how the collar builds out. So you do start to do some increases here. So it's not just gonna be straight down. It will be sort of a V-neck. And I've just started the increases here. And the drop shoulder, I believe my sleeve will start about here, and that's where I will pick up the stitches here and knit my sleeve. So what I am curious about, like I said, with my row gauge, is just how long mine is going to end up being in comparison. Like it's meant to be slouchy, but it's also meant to be a little bit, sorry, my needle is coming loose and I am just twisting that back before I lose it. Okay, let's take this off, shall we? Okay. Yeah, so I'm really curious to see how long this ends up being. If I didn't mention, my back is about 1.5 inches longer than she recommends for the amount of rows. So it's a fairly significant increase. So I'm really curious how much longer mine is gonna be. And if I need to improvise where I place my buttons, that's okay. Like I said, it's a cropped cardigan, but I'm okay with it not being so cropped because it's an oversized cardigan. I want it to be comfortable and slouchy. So we're gonna see, but either way, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I'm in love with the yarn. I'm in love with the color. The only place where I'm actually stumped is buttons. I feel like I watched a podcast a few months back where somebody was showing these buttons that were either clear enamel or acrylic, and they had like gold flecks and like little pops of green in them, like bright green. I've searched on Etsy, but I feel like those were a little bit more glittery than what I was going for. If you have seen buttons like this or know of a good place to buy buttons from like a local maker or just a smaller maker, please let me know. The one thing that kind of bums me out is my local yarn stores near me don't really carry a lot of buttons. A lot of them don't carry buttons at all, and the ones that do, it's kind of a limited supply. It must not be very profitable. I'm not really sure why it's so hard to find. And I know, like, worst case scenario, I could go to Joann, but I'm gonna keep searching to see if I can find these buttons that I see in my mind. I know they must exist somewhere because I know I saw them at some point. And so, yeah, if you have any recommendations for buttons, please let me know. That would be incredibly helpful. And yeah, I'll be saving that for last, obviously. But it's starting to move along, and it's DK weight, so it moves pretty quickly, and it's a fun knit. I'm really excited to get this left front panel done, because once I do that, I believe I'll be joining everything together, and then I can actually knit the entire thing back and forth, and hopefully it should move well, I don't know if it'll move quicker, but at least it'll feel a little bit more like a real garment at that point, instead of this weird blobby piecemeal project. So yeah, I think that's my only other work in progress right now. And so it's just these two items. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, so I don't feel like I've had as much time to finish projects as usual. I've got 2 patterns in testing, which means that the last few weeks I've been writing those patterns, revising them, making edits, and it just takes a lot of brain space. So in the evenings I will knit, but it's just, I feel like I haven't had quite as much knitting time lately. I think that pretty much covers all of my knitting goings on for this week. In terms of personal updates, outside of my 15 minutes of talking to you about my cats, there's not much else going on besides the test knits. The book I mentioned last week, I'm still reading that. So that's the Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand. I would say I'm about halfway through it right now. It's been moving a little bit slow because I've been so exhausted. So I read in bed with my Kindle, and normally we go to bed a little bit early, but I'm more of a night owl, and so I love having that time to get in like 2 or 3 hours of reading before I fall asleep. But these last couple of weeks, we'll go to bed, I will read like 3 pages, and then the next thing I know, I've dropped my Kindle and I've passed out. So it's been a little bit slow, but I'm still enjoying the book so far. So far, so good. Definitely a little bit different than some of the other books I've read lately. And I'll keep you posted on how I like it when it's done. So I think that is gonna wrap up my podcast for today. If you stuck around till the end, thank you so much for watching. If you wanna get in touch with me, I am Mishifraz on both Instagram and Ravelry. I am mishifraz@gmail.com, and you can also find my blog at mishifrazknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Until next time, bye.